again. This is Startup Central here on ET Now. These are, of course, like we mentioned, difficult times for any business. Yes, we do have about 30 unicorns in India. But really, for businesses to brace up to the challenges right now, it could be a do or die. Whether you're a unicorn or not, whether you're an established business, you're a startup that's a fledgling enterprise, the picture for funding for growth is changing. So how do you deal with it? Saurabh Srivastava is an IT industry veteran. He's also the co-founder of the Indian Angel Network, and he's joining us on Startup Central on the phone line. Mr. Srivastava, great to have you with us, and a very warm welcome to Startup Central. Like I was telling our viewers, these could be troubling times for industries across the board. This economic slowdown that the country has been in, slowing down investments everywhere. But now with the coronavirus, the uncertainties that are building around it, and the way the stock markets are turning so volatile as well, how is that affecting all of these factors, affecting the funding patterns for startups? And by that, I mean both the ones that are just setting up their businesses and those that have been looking at shoring up more funds to scale up.
So firstly, of course, the stock market doesn't impact startups in terms of where we are funding at the seed and early stage. But yes, the slowing business environment has a big impact. So one of the things that we're telling all of our startups is to be very careful and conserve cash, because whatever they may have made, or at least sort of as projections of their revenues, sales, business forecasts, are very likely to be substantially reduced. So they need to have enough ammunition to go the course. The second thing is, if you look at all the travel that's getting restricted, doing second rounds, doing multiple rounds, getting co-investors from around the globe, the whole process will slow. So private equity, particularly early stage capital like what we do, growth stage capital, a lot of that money is available, but trying to raise it for startups, the connects, the kind of vibrancy that is needed in the entire ecosystem is certainly going to suffer as a result of inability of people to travel, reluctance to travel, startups running around pitching will be hard. It's much more difficult to make a good case when you're on a call or when you're on a video,
yes,
and in person. So slowing down. That
yes,
doesn't mean innovation will stop. That really doesn't have a future.
But that,
indeed,
yes. No, Mr. Srivastava, I take that point very well, that right now you need to conserve firepower. You need to ensure that unnecessary spends are restricted. But that is true for businesses, but right now more so. But also we heard Mr. Rajan Anandan from Sequoia tell us about how every adversity also presents itself with several opportunities. We know a lot of businesses are asking their employees to work from home, and I reckon this gives a leg up to several tech startups as well. Since you've been associated with the IT industry to such a large extent in your career, do you see that happening?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just look at just go back to the beginning of the century, and you would all have heard about Y2K. It was a disaster, impending for everybody. It helped create the Indian IT services industry. So there is going to be room for a lot of innovation, rethinking business models. Right now we're looking at companies in the healthcare sector that will have a great future, including one that I think is doing something to do with the coronavirus. There are many opportunities, and there are certainly areas in healthcare and wherever where companies will meet much better.
Mr. Srivastava, we seem to have a patchy line with you, and we'll try and fix that. But I was also thinking about the news reports that were coming in. In just 1 week, we know that Ola and Uber have reported almost a 40% drop in daily rides. So when you look at this business in particular, do you think the coronavirus could have a broader impact on these ride-sharing companies? Mr. Srivastava? I don't know if we still have him on the phone line because it was a rather patchy connection. But at this point in time, I was looking at that data where ride-sharing companies are really taking the brunt, as it were, when it comes to the kind of impact that's playing out because of the coronavirus. Like Mr. Srivastava was pointing out as well, that firepower needs to be retained by companies. They're encouraging more and more employees to work from home as well, which also means that a lot of corporate travel is restricted. And how that is going to play out on many of these ride-sharing companies is out in play as well. But also, we're looking at the kind of universe that is created by way of the funding atmosphere. For the moment, as far as strategies are concerned for those early stage startups, how exactly do they pitch? Because if they are going to pitch a plan, they will need to talk about how much they are going to be able to conserve in these times and restrict their spends. That's something that would have to be part of that pitch. We'll take a very small breather right now and try and connect with Mr. Srivastava to get some of the answers to the funding questions that many of our startups would have. We'll be right back after this small break. Do stay with us. And earlier we had a chat with Mukul Rastogi as well. He's the co-founder of Class Plus. It's part of an interaction around edtech startups. This is what we got from him.
ClassPlus was started in January of 2018 with an acute focus on empowering the local educators, which are predominantly in the forms of small, medium-sized coaching centers, which are spread across every nook and corner of the country. Like, India is a very unique country in that aspect that out of the 70 million odd students who take tutoring every year, almost 98% of these students still opt for local tutoring, where there are these small businesses in every neighborhood, and people after school or for their government job preparation or for their vocational training trust that local educator to teach them on how to ace those examinations. Now these setups are predominantly brick and mortar in nature, and they're run by, let's say, a couple of faculties, couple of teachers who are micro entrepreneurs in their own right from educating the children to developing content to putting out their marketing stacks to maintaining relationship with parents, and on top of that they run a small business profitably. So we thought that a lot of these things can actually be automated and brought on a single tech platform, and a teacher should fundamentally just be focused on doing his blackboard or whiteboard exercises. So that is where ClassPlus came into play, and now ClassPlus has morphed into a mobile platform which allows these local institutes to do all things ancillary to teaching, right from their communication to their payments to their scheduling to their online assessments to video distribution to chatting with parents. Everything and anything is done on a single platform, and making these tutors' life, apart from teaching, pretty simple.
Is it done through an app, or what kind of platform do you use, and what kind of subscription charges do students incur, if there are any?
Yeah, so for students, there's absolutely no cost attached to it. The primary mode of our platform, and that's where we got a real advantage. We became the category leaders within 12 months of launch, and one of the single factors for that was that we had a very mobile first approach. We realized that the India of today, the internet users who are coming today, almost all of the content that they're consuming is routed via a mobile platform.
All right, so that's the word coming in from the founders of ClassUp, but that's the edtech space. Overall, as far as funding is concerned for the startup universe, how is it panning out, especially now in times of the coronavirus, where more and more companies are asking their employees to work from home? How is this looking for cab-hailing services? In just a week, Ola and Uber, I was telling you, they've reported almost a 40% drop in their daily rides. So Mr. Srivastava from the India Angel Network is joining us again on the phone line. Thanks for staying with us, Mr. Srivastava. I was just wondering, with what we're hearing about ride-sharing companies, how deep is the impact likely to be in your understanding?
I think the ride-sharing companies are certainly going to go through some trouble. And like you said, whenever you have a challenge, it creates a lot of opportunities. So I have little doubt that we'll see more innovative solutions coming up. For example, if anyone could provide, or at least give comfort, that you could have a cab that would be safe, I think that company would be swamped, because people still have to move around. and they're scared of getting into a car which might be infected. So there are going to be different challenges. I mean, there are companies in pharma. In fact, we're looking at one right now which is got some solutions for disinfection, particularly to do with corona, and many others are going to come in that same area. So different models will evolve. We will see innovators coming up and grabbing this opportunity because this slowdown will take a while.
Yes, but Mr. Srivastava, since we have very little time, I also wanted to ask you about SoftBank, which is planning to spend up to $4.8 billion to buy back as much as 7% of its shares. Do you see this as one of the steps that may lead to paring down funding for startups in the future, considering there's such a huge deployment towards buybacks by one of the largest backers of Indian startups?
I think that is going to be a challenge. Certainly, I think companies that are looking at the much larger round, the big multi-billion-dollar rounds, they would need to take care because that is where actually the biggest pain will be felt. And certainly companies that had depended on travel, on discretionary spend, many of those are going to see a big challenge. And that is one of the reasons why moving to conserving cash and moving to a cash break-even as far as possible, and really not just gunning for top line, but also looking at their business models and looking at also how they can get at least a break-even while they may not have dramatic growth will be very important, because for a while companies are not going to be funded only on just top-line growth. And I think many companies have gotten used to it. So
Yes, Mr. Srivastava, I mean, these times are tough, and how quickly you're able to align your strategy with the reality of our times. Now, that's going to be the real test for startups all across the board. Even as you hear about marquee unicorns like Swiggy, like Dream11, they're hiring employees with a 50% hike. Even the smaller startups, they're offering 30 to 40% hikes in salaries. How this is going to play out on the startup ecosystem remains to be seen. Several uncertainties around business growth, but we'll have to keep watching this space and keep reporting on it. That's what we get here on Startup Central. Mr. Srivastava, many thanks for joining us here on the show. And we're completely out of time on this edition of Startup Central. Thanks indeed for joining us this evening. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.